So BYU, 36-14 over Colorado in the Alamo Bowl. I told you, like, I am somebody who said, hey, BYU should be getting more of a look at the playoff. But even I feel like after watching that game, I messed up and should have talked about that more, should have pushed that point more. And frankly, the SEC mafia just perfectly distracted us from making what would have actually been the most compelling case about the playoff of any year. Look at BYU. That win for BYU is going to give them more mileage than anything else they did the rest of the season. You know, I mean, it almost does about as much as just like the aggregate of starting 9-0 before the loss to Kansas and losing 2 of the final 3. Like, everybody, I'll be anxious to see what the TV number is there. But because of the slot that you were in at night, that being one of the best bowl matchups, I think, to basically everybody outside of the New Year's Six, and it involved Coach Prime and Colorado, and their stars were playing. Shedeur was playing. Travis Hunter was playing after all the controversy about the Heisman. That was a great spot to get a lot of eyeballs on you, and BYU just wiped the floor with Colorado. I mean, I get it. There's some frustration about the broadcast and how much they were focusing on Colorado, and even, you know, the ESPN college football Twitter account, which I think tweeted like it was maybe the Parker Kingston return touchdown. And then the next thing is like the touchdown, you know, losing its mind over the touchdown to Travis Hunter to make it 27-7. Very much in the vein of the Chris Paul meme where it's like Chris Paul hits a huge 3 to cut the lead to 39. That type of thing is definitely that. I can understand being frustrated if you're a BYU fan, but everything else was glorious, man. And at the end of the day now, they tack on that win to go 11-2. And look at this resume, man. They had a better win than Miami by winning at SMU. Okay. Better strength of schedule. They did not, like Bama, have 2 losses to 6-6 teams. They did not, like Ole Miss, have a loss to a 4-win SEC team in Kentucky. And I just feel like everybody discounted them because of the eye test. And this is really the danger in how we approach things, like the way that Paul Feinbaum would like to approach the playoff and just say, well, that's a more talented team that Bama has. Put them in. They should be in. They're more talented than Indiana, SMU, or BYU. So we got to put them in. My eye test says they look better. Well, all of our eye tests would have said, I think Colorado looks better here. That certainly, I can speak for myself. I thought Colorado would win the game. I thought BYU had really faded. It felt to me like good team for sure that overachieved a little bit and ran out of gas. There was a lot of gas left in the tank there. And you put them in a neutral site game against a really hyped up team that certainly has more high level talent in a couple of different spots. And they just demolished them. I mean, it's 36-14, but BYU had 3 very stupid turnovers. You know, one of them is just Retzloff being Retzloff and trying to do too much. One of them is a shovel pass, kind of a fluky, weird play. And one of them is just getting too cute, trick play. Gary Bohannon, I understand why he's going to try and force a throw there. A guy has not been able to play much this year. Overzealous to try and make his move there and throws a bad interception. But that could have, I mean, they could have scored 50. They could have put up 50 on Colorado, and they pummeled them at the line of scrimmage. Just, you know, everything that was said about Colorado early in the year and last year kind of came to fruition there. BYU rushes for 180 yards, only gave up 2 sacks. Colorado's defensive front had been pretty good this year. And then on the other side, Colorado had 210 yards. Like, I was looking at the Shedeur final stat line. I'm like, man, if Shedeur has under 200 yards passing, like, that's Colorado's not beating anybody because that they have to have that for their offense. They're not running the ball well enough against anybody, or even trying to run the ball enough against anybody to get away with Shedeur having under 200 passing yards. So anyway, hell of an effort. BYU was sharp. They were fun. That everything about that looked great. And that's the danger in why we can't take away the aspect of like earning your way into the playoff, because you can just write that off. Even ball knowers like me, guys, you know how much I know ball. All of you who watch this channel, I'm sure you're all in 100% agreement of that. I thought there's no way BYU would do that to Colorado. If you would have told me the final score was 36-14, I would have said, yeah, okay, I could see that. It'd be a nice last hurrah for Shedeur and Travis. That's what I would have thought, but I would have been dead wrong. And that's where you got to go to the metrics. Look at the metrics of what BYU did. Now, I'm not, again, saying I saw someone like, hey, let's not get too carried away. I'm not saying that bowl games are the be-all, end-all. But you can make more of this bowl game than most because Colorado Stars did play. They took out freaking insurance policies so that they could play in this game. That was a pretty motivated Colorado team, I would say. I think there's every reason to say that they would have. That's as close in a bowl game scenario in 2024 as you're going to get to something that's pretty meaningful and a team really caring and putting everything into it and guys actually playing. And Shedeur didn't leave at halftime like Cam Ward. Travis Hunter did not leave at halftime like Cam Ward. They didn't do that. They played all the way through, and BYU pummeled them all the way through. So we can use this, I think, as a pretty effective data point. And I'm not saying definitively, hey, like BYU should have been in over Indiana or should have been in over SMU, but it certainly is worth a conversation, is it not? Especially when SMU lost to BYU at home. Okay? That's the very obvious point here. And Miami was the team that was, last on the outside looking in essentially and got, lots of complaining going on. And if you want to go Bama, Miami, right? It should have been Bama, Miami, BYU all in that conversation, but the combo didn't even happen. And that's one of the problems for the Big 12 moving forward is that you can't even wedge yourself into that conversation. So that's the real frustration there. This is not a video saying, hey, BYU definitively should have been in the playoff. It's that BYU proved that they absolutely belonged in that discussion, and it was incredibly disrespectful to not include them in the discussion. Incredibly disrespectful to the league, incredibly disrespectful to BYU, incredibly disrespectful to Kalani Sitake, everybody involved there. Everybody. And you have to love Kalani Sitake, man, because on one hand, you've got Lane Kiffin, who just will not log off, is constantly online and firing off tweet after tweet about why his team should be in the playoff, but doing it in a very sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek sort of way, won't shut up about it. And then on the other side, you've got Kalani Sitake, who just doesn't say anything, goes out there and drills Colorado on national TV. And after the game, he's asked, hey, should you guys have gotten more attention? Like, do you want to make a case for why you should have been in the playoff? And he just said, I don't think that's anything you can campaign for. Very low-key, didn't want to take that opportunity, served it on a silver platter at a moment where he absolutely earned it, right? Not Lane Kiffin at the end of a 9-3 season where he lost to Kentucky and just firing off tweets. You earned it, man. You went out and proved everybody wrong and spanked Colorado. And he doesn't even want to take that opportunity to do it. Now, maybe you could turn around and say, well, that's a problem in and of itself. The Big 12 needs to advocate for itself. Kalani needs to advocate for it. That's just who Kalani Sitake is, and I appreciate that about him. And Coach Prime appreciated that about him. Coach Prime had some glowing things to say about Kalani Sitake after the game, man. So it just very interesting in the approaches there. It just means more, I suppose, in the SEC, and they showed every bit of that with the way that they reacted to not getting everybody bending the knee to them, not getting the selection committee to totally bend the knee to them this year. But congratulations, man, to BYU for that. And this has the opportunity to have some impact beyond just capping off an 11-win season this year and the benefit that you get for, perhaps people looking back and being like, oh, maybe we made a mistake here this year. That can pay some dividends next year because they may start the year in the preseason top 25 now, which can definitely help you. That's always something that is very fickle and silly, but it definitely does help. If you start in the top 25, we talked about this all year with the Big 12. Had Utah, Oklahoma State, and K-State been three of the teams that were jockeying for position atop the league, you probably would have had a much better chance of getting two bids this year. You would have had somebody would have, like a BYU. If it were Utah instead, probably is in the conversation because they started in the top 25. They had more of a reputation built up. This will start doing that. This will start doing that for BYU to build things up for next year. I saw someone ask, I think it was the Tater Man a second ago, is Retzloff back? Yeah, I mean, I think Retzloff is expected to be back. You'll have L.J. Martin, Chase Roberts, Keelan Marion, Parker Kingston. There are a lot of guys that are going to be back on that BYU team. They will definitely get more run than they did this past year, quite obviously. You know, I mean, that was a part of the deal for BYU. It's like people were waiting for them to lose so that you can justify, well, this is a team picked 13th in the Big 12. Like, we didn't expect much of them. They weren't very good last year, so they can't possibly be very good this year. Well, now you can actually get some juice next year when things kick in. Now, do I think BYU is going to be the Big 12 favorite next year? I do not, because I think you're going to have a really interesting like top tier of Big 12 favorites, like Arizona State, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Baylor, BYU, probably all some order like in a top tier of Big 12 favorites, maybe like Colorado, K-State on the fringe there too. That's kind of the group that and that's a lot of teams. Welcome to the Big 12, but I think you'll have different cases being made for all those. Obviously, Arizona State's defending champ. They're going to bring back Sam Leavitt. I saw someone in the chat fire off that Sam Leavitt would be the best quarterback in the Big 12 next year. Might be. He's going to be back. Iowa State brings back Rocco Becht. You're going to have to replace some really good stud receivers, but Rocco Becht is going to be back at Iowa State. Texas Tech returns Baron Morton. They're obviously bringing in what is right now the number one portal class in the country. It's going to command a lot of attention. Sawyer Robertson at Baylor, another great quarterback that's returning. A lot of young pieces on that offense. They finished the year red hot. Like, Baylor is going to get a lot of attention. So there will be plenty of competition, I guess, is the point for BYU there. But no matter what, they're going to be in that conversation, which will benefit them a lot if you're going to make a run next year. And sucks that that's the way it has to be. Not totally fair. I'm not here to tell you that it's fair, but I do think that is the reality on that one.